My name is Mitchell Resnick. I'm a professor here at the MIT Media Lab, where I lead a research group called the Lifelong Kindergarten Group. We call our group the Lifelong Kindergarten Group because I've been inspired by the way children learn in kindergarten. When I think of the traditional kindergarten, I think of kids playfully creating and designing things in collaboration with one another. That in some ways we try to make the Media Lab like a big kindergarten. Now, of course, the big kids here at the Media Lab are using more advanced tools than the finger paints and wooden blocks of kindergarten. They're using 3D printers and microcontrollers, but the spirit is the same. It's about people playfully creating, designing things in collaboration with one another. And we think that's where the greatest innovation and creativity will come from. And it also is the best way to help the students develop as creative thinkers. But probably most importantly, they're learning about the creative process, how to start with an idea and turn it into something that you can share with others. So we think that approach to learning shouldn't just happen in kindergarten. When we think about the creative learning process, we sometimes capture it in what we call the creative learning spiral. And we think of this spiral as something that starts with the imagination. You start with imagine. So you have an idea and then you create. So it goes from imagine to create. You create something based on those ideas. And then you play and experiment with your creation. And then you share with others and collaborate with others. And then you might step back and reflect upon it. And through that reflection, you start imagining again. So it's this spiral that keeps going and going from imagine, create, play, share, reflect, and then more imagination. The biggest project in our Lifelong Kindergarten Group right now is the Scratch project. It's a programming language and online community developed to help kids express themselves creatively with computers. So with Scratch, kids can program their own interactive stories and games and animations, and then share their creations with one another in an online community. In doing it, kids learn a lot of computational ideas and mathematical ideas, but more importantly, they're learning to think creatively, to reason systematically, and work collaboratively. And those are skills that are important for everybody. I generally think the best way for students to learn anything is by diving in and having some concrete experience. So I'm somewhat skeptical about places that start out and just try to teach students the design process by drawing diagrams and having them learn about the diagrams. It's similar with the scientific process. If I don't think that you should teach about the scientific process by having kids look at some diagram about the scientific process. They should be doing their own investigations to learn about the scientific process. And I think similarly with the design process, you want kids to be designing things and learning about it through their own personal experience. Sometimes when people are going through a design thinking process, they start by defining the problem, make sure they understand the problem well so they know how to tackle it. We often start a little bit differently. We often start with the imagination and try to think about what the problem might be rather than trying to define a problem that someone else has posed to you. Now, of course, in some settings, it's important to be able to have a situation that's given to you and come up with an understanding of the problem so you can come up with a good solution. But we often think that something that's missing for a lot of kids is developing the ability to find new problems and to take their imagination and how to bring it into reality. So an important part of learning through and about design is to understand the iterative process of going from an idea to a prototype to a next prototype and making revisions all the time. Now, as you go through that process, you might be narrowing in and converging on the best solution for a given problem, but also by going through that process, you might realize that there's a different problem that is the one you really want to solve. So the goals might shift through that process. So I think the process is both good at refining towards coming up with a solution for a particular problem, but also it's a good one for helping to develop new ideas, new goals, and new problems.